Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's Diego with the lovely Karina, my beautiful prometida, who is living in Bogota, Colombia, and I am in the Panhandle of Florida, waiting for our K-1 visa to get adjudicated at the Service Center in California. And this video, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, is primarily directed at our good friends who are living in the Philippines. The beautiful, beautiful Philippines, thousands and thousands of islands. And come on along as I explain to you an in-depth process for our Philippine friends who are thinking about or in the process of getting a K-1 visa. So let's go over the basics, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, what are the basic requirements for being able to get a K-1 visa? Well, both couples, you, Mr. Sponsor, Mrs. Beneficiary, you both have to be free and legally able to marry. Okay? Before you fill out your USCIS form I-129F, which is the K-1 visa, 13-page paperwork that you start with. Okay? You have to have met each other physically in person, face to face, lots of hugs at the airport in Manila. Okay? You have got to have met each other in person within 2 years of filing the I-129F. So that means, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, if you met your fiancé, future fiancé, 2 years and a month ago, and you file your visa will be denied. It has to be within 2 years of being face to face with each other. You must have a genuine and sincere relationship with each other, which means you love each other and you've got a lot of time together, you've got a lot of face-to-face time, and you can prove it to USCIS. Everything has to be proven. Evidence, evidence, evidence. Immigration doesn't take your word for anything, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. And this applies to every country in the world. I don't care what country it is you're going to apply for your fiancé. You got to have evidence that your relationship is real. You, Mr. Sponsor, Miss Sponsor, must be a U.S. citizen, okay? And you must be able to demonstrate and prove with tax returns, bank statements, pay stubs, etc., that you meet the financial requirement to support your future bride-to-be or groom from the Philippines. Now, the Philippines does not allow for joint sponsorship. So if you do not meet the minimum income requirements, which is 125% of the, it's 125% in the United States when you adjust status, and 100% for the K-1 visa. If you can't meet that, you can't get a joint sponsor, you can't use your assets, etc. Okay? But this applies only to the Philippines. So my advice to you, Mr. Sponsor, Ms. Sponsor, is if you cannot meet the financial requirements of 125% of the minimum income, federal minimum income requirements, you guys get married in the Philippines and process a CR1, R1 visa. Excuse me, because you can use assets and get a joint sponsor if you guys are already married. Alright? Another requirement for the Philippines, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, is that you must pass, Miss Beneficiary, Mr. Beneficiary, you must pass a stringent medical exam. It's a tough medical exam. The Philippines are very, very strict, okay? You got to pass a medical exam. You got to pass an interview at the embassy, and then you must marry each other within 90 days of upon arriving in the United States. If you do not get married within 90 days, Miss Beneficiary, Mr. Beneficiary, you got to leave the country, okay? So those are the basic requirements, and it applies to all K-1 visas, but this is for the Philippines. Now, it is usually easier for the American citizen. You got to be an American citizen for the K-1 visa. It's much easier for the American citizen to fly to the Philippines, wherever you live, Cebu, Manila, beautiful country, okay? To meet face to face, more than likely the American will fly to you, Miss Beneficiary, Mr. Beneficiary, okay? And if you don't meet face to face, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, then the chances of you getting your visa approved are pretty much zero, okay? Now there are some parts of USCIS, they have a little wording here that says, because of cultural or religious reasons you cannot meet face-to-face, you can get a waiver for meeting face-to-face in person. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, meet face-to-face, meet face-to-face. All right. Okay, so how much does it cost for a K-1 visa? Okay, when it comes to the U.S. government, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the U.S. immigration fees are the same for, doesn't matter what country it is you live in, the country it is, doesn't matter. The fees are the same, okay? However, in the Philippines, there are some fees that will be different from other countries, okay? So, for example, if you live in the Philippines, you're going to need a PSA birth certificate. You're going to need an unexpired passport with at least 6 months of expiration still on it. You're going to need two 2x2 passport photos. You're going to need a PSA certificate of no marriage. Now remember, this pertains to the Philippines only, okay? And you're going to need an NBI clearance. Now other Filipinos will need police records if they've worked as an OFW, overseas foreign worker. For example, a lot of Filipinos work in Saudi Arabia, they've worked in Kuwait, they've worked in other countries, which I don't blame them. They will need a police certificate from those countries too. And getting a police certificate from Saudi Arabia can be a little tricky. So get it while you're in the country, Miss Filipino beneficiary, okay? Because once you leave Saudi Arabia, it's probably impossible to get a police certificate from Saudi Arabia. So it's going to be excused from your K-1 visa process. Some of you watching the video looking at a K-1 visa may need to get a red ribbon annulment certificate or a PSA death certificate, okay? They may need to get other NBI clearances, especially if they have name changes, if you had your name changed, okay? So these are things to think about for our Filipino friends in the K-1 visa process. Now I talk a lot about beneficiary and sponsor, blah, 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 okay? The U.S. citizen, you Mr. Sponsor, is the sponsor, okay? So the U.S. citizen is the sponsor. And the alien fiancé, the young lady or gentleman living in the beautiful Philippines, you are what's known as the beneficiary, okay? This is important information which you need for when you fill out the I-129F. You're going to get questions, Mr. Sponsor, Miss Sponsor, questions for sponsor, questions for beneficiary. You are the sponsor, and your fiancé in the Philippines or whatever country is the beneficiary, okay? And every year, the United States, they look at, you know, the financial ability of American citizens on how they can support their future beneficiaries. So you got to make a minimum income of how to qualify for this visa benefit. So our Filipino friends, the basic cost, first your sponsor is going to have to write a check for $535. Now that's as of February 7th, 2023. Those prices are going to change. More than likely the price is going to go up. Okay, but as of right now it's $535. And then you have to pay a non-immigrant visa application fee for your DS-160, which is $265 right now. And then later you're going to have, in the Philippines, the price of a medical exam is about $335. So the total price for you, Mr. Sponsor, Miss Sponsor, right now, as of February 7th, 2023, is at $1,135. So, Mr. Sponsor, Miss Sponsor, if you cannot meet at least 125% of the minimum federal guidelines, poverty guidelines, income requirements for the Philippines, then your visa will not be processed for a K-1 visa. You won't make it. So, the only alternative for you would be to get married and file a CR1 visa, because then you can use a joint sponsor or your assets for to help you qualify and make up the difference. But right now you can't do that. The U.S. Embassy in Manila, Philippines will not allow you to use assets or a joint sponsor if you don't meet that minimum 125%. And each income requirement is different per family member. So if you're a household of two, this will be the minimum income requirement at 125%. If you're a family of three, household of three, this will be the minimum income requirement. And then for 4 people right here, etc. Now, another thing to think about during this K-1 visa process is the IMBRA, okay? Now, the IMBRA is the International Marriage Broker Regulation Act, okay? These are rules put in place in connection with Adam Walsh. Now, Adam Walsh was a little kid that disappeared and was murdered. Horrible situation. But this rule was put in place, okay, to stop human trafficking, child molesters, sexual misconduct, stalking, kidnapping, and things like that. Okay, so the IMBRA, if you met your fiance in the Philippines through an IMBRA, there are certain hoops that you have to jump through, Mr. Sponsor, Miss Sponsor. And there are certain felonies that can prevent a U.S. citizen from sponsoring an alien fiance from the Philippines to the United States or any country. So you say, well, my court records have been expunged, they've been locked away for 20 or 30 years. It doesn't matter, okay? Each and every crime falls under the IMBRA category. It must be mentioned in order to not have a problem in the future when you file your K-1 visa, okay? The U.S. Department of Homeland Security will find out everything about you, Mr. Sponsor, Miss Sponsor. The government has access to stuff you would not believe. So if you have any problems, past criminal records, you must include it in your K-1 visa package, okay? Especially for the IMBRA requirement, okay? And also, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, our friends in the Philippines, your sponsor can sponsor only gets two chances at a K-1 visa process. If your sponsor had married a Filipino in the past and it didn't work out, okay, things happen. So he gets a second chance, okay? These records will be known to the U.S. government, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. So if you are a sponsor who has married a Filipino in the past, who went through the K-1 visa process in the past, you must disclose it in your K-1 visa application. And if you have any documents, if you have any NOA-1 letters, NOA-2 letters, copies of the previous K-1 visas, include it in your K-1 visa application. Now, I talked about evidence of your relationship. You got to have evidence of your relationship. Immigration, don't take your word for anything, Mr. Sponsor, Miss Sponsor. So keep, your boarding passes, your photos together, your hotel receipts, your dinner date receipts. If you bought your beneficiary a birthday present or a Christmas present, anything like that, keep all the receipts, okay? And once you have filed your K-1 visa package to the lockbox in Dallas, continue your relationship evidence, keep printing your chat logs, your emails, your letters, and things like that, because you're going to bring that information to the U.S. Embassy interview. Once you get your visa approved by USCIS, okay, the immigration officer is going to want to, and the consular officer at the embassy in Manila is going to want to see continued evidence of your relationship. Phone bills, things like that, messenger chat logs, WhatsApp. Put this app on your phone and chat using WhatsApp. It's free, okay? And print some of the chat logs. Mr. Sponsor, Miss Sponsor, are you sending any money to your beneficiary in the Philippines? Okay, that's great. That's not a problem. Keep the receipts. Keep the Western Union receipts, whatever, the MoneyGram, whatever you use. Keep the receipts and include it. Bring them with you to your embassy interview. Give them to your fiance so she has them as evidence of continued relationship. Okay, so what's going to slow your visa package down? What's going to make your K-1 visa slow down? Okay? Make sure you get all the police records from whatever countries it is you worked in as an OFW, Miss Beneficiary. overseas foreign worker. Okay, if you have any name changes on your birth certificate, any typos, make sure there are no typos or name changes on your birth certificate. If they are, get them corrected now before your sponsor submits the K1 visa package. Okay? Make sure you have the correct passport requirements. No expired passport. Missing or incorrect documents. If you've been married in the past, you gotta have all previous marriages have to be finalized in a final divorce decree. Okay? Correct that stuff right now. Get it ready right now. If you become pregnant during this K1 visa process, okay, you're going to have to include the child. It's no problem to do that. It doesn't speed up the process, but you got to think about these things, okay? Medical exams are mandatory, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, okay? A K1 visa in the Philippines requires that all K1 and K2 applicants have a medical exam, okay? And the results are usually back the same day. It's not a difficult process. I already mentioned how much it costs, okay? If during the medical exam that the doctor finds that you have tuberculosis, TB, or not active, but a case of TB dormant in your body, it must be treated, okay, before you will be permitted to travel to the United States, okay? You cannot continue with your visa process unless you have been fully treated for TB. This applies to all countries, especially in the Philippines, okay? If you go to your visa interview and you admit that you have used drugs as far back as 15 years, Miss Beneficiary, the interviewer will send you back for another medical exam, and he will have your blood checked and your urine checked and your hair follicles checked for drugs, okay? So don't do drugs. The Philippines is very, very strict, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, on the medical exam. If the doctor sees that you have any scars on your body, and you cannot explain them, okay, the doctor may ask you, have you ever tried to commit suicide? If the doctor isn't convinced that you didn't, you will be placed in a week-long psychological evaluation clinic before you will get your K1 visa, okay? So think about all this stuff before your sponsor, your U.S. citizen fiance, files for the K1 visa. The medical exam can be stressful in the Philippines and tiring, even more than the embassy interview itself, okay? And St. Luke's Clinic in Manila, Philippines is, I would Google that online and investigate that, because that's where you're going to go for your medical exam, okay? If you put together a strong K1 visa package, Mr. Sponsor, Miss Sponsor, immigration, if you can make it easy for them to review it, no paper clips, no staples, put everything together in document protectors. Now some people say don't use document protectors. Well, your K1 visa is going to sit in a warehouse for a year or whatever. Protect your paperwork. But make it easy for the immigration officer to review your strong visa package. If you have a strong visa package, they'll look at it and say, hey, this one's definitely for real. Let's get it going. But if you submit a weak, pitiful visa package with errors in it, and it's not strong, you don't have any evidence, hardly at all, hardly any photos, immigration's going to sit a hold on it. They're going to sit on it. They're not going to process it as quickly. Trust me, they won't. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this video was primarily aimed at our good friends in the beautiful Philippines. We hope it was helpful to you. Karina is in Colombia, Bogota, Colombia. She says hi to everybody. You will get your K1 visa if you are qualified for this immigration benefit. Please don't stress this process. Stay calm, stay relaxed, okay? Don't, you're gonna do it. You're gonna get it, okay? The Philippines, we love our friends in the Philippines. You got a little bit more stringent of a requirement to get your visa. The income requirements are a little bit more stringent. The medical exam is a little bit more stringent, and there's a little bit more paperwork that you have to do in order to qualify. But you can do this. We have confidence in you. And then, Mr. Sponsor, when you get your fiance to the United States, make sure you investigate the local Philam community, the Filipino American community, and get your new fiance into making friends, make Filipino friends here in the United States, so she doesn't feel like she's, you know, like a fish out of water in a strange place. You know all this already. Thanks for watching the videos, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. We're gonna get you through this horrible process as easily as possible, and we will see you soon in the USA with your K1 visa in your passport. Take care.
I'll be back.